This is straight up this week's But Why fight. We have it at middleweight, couple of bangers. Jamie Pickett, the Night Wolf, taking on, and somewhere Chris Farley is rolling in his grave, the Beverly Hills Ninja, Jordan Wright, coming out of Dynamics MMA. And Matt, for Jordan Wright, I mean, the book was kind of out on him before he came into Contender Series. This was a guy that fought a very meager level of competition, but as we like to say with Fight Night Picks, beat those guys the way you want to see them beat. Now, he finished Edward Darby, who was 0-21 at the time, in 10 seconds. He finished Julian Hernandez, who was...
Quick update on Edward Darby. He is now 0-22 and has not fought since, unfortunately.
Okay, Julian Hernandez is 0-10. I don't think we checked in on him since, but Wright was able to finish him in 39 seconds. And then, again, first round finish, 0-0, 1-2, 7-3. And then he comes on a Contender Series and he gets beat by Anthony Hernandez, a guy that ended up getting tested positive for the dank herb. And then after that, he beats Gabriel Checo. Now, that's when I went, okay, Jordan Wright crushed cans. And listen, we normally say that. Give credit where credit's due and respect. These guys are in the cage against a guy that can finish them. Have I done it? No. That's why I'm talking on YouTube. But Jordan Wright did it. And hell, Craig Wilkerson, John Stern, Julian Hernandez, and Edward Darby sacrificed their bodies for the sport. Now, beating Gabriel Checo, again, that holds water for me. That's a longtime LFA vet, a guy that's fought some very established names. That one checks out. Then he gets his call in the UFC, and he beats Ike Villanueva. Now, did Villanueva have a lot of success up a weight class at 265 against Chase Sherman? No. Did he have a lot of success against Jordan Wright in a fight at light heavyweight where Jordan Wright weighed 200 pounds? No. So, Wright finishes that fight. Okay, that's all right. Then he goes in and fights Joaquin Buckley. And it just so happened that was on Joaquin Buckley's Shadow Realm tour. And Joaquin Buckley put him away. What did you think of that one?
Joaquin Buckley's going to be one of those Tapology pages that you just stumble across in like 20 years. You're like, I remember that guy. Remember 2020? That was the summer of Joaquin Buckley. Now, unfortunately, Jordan Wright was the victim of Joaquin Buckley. And that's my big problem with Jordan Wright. He looked so slow in that fight. I understand Joaquin Buckley. Listen, he's a good striker. He might not be a great striker. Kiriko definitely exposed some of those holes. But still, there is some stuff to like about Jordan. There is some stuff to like about Joaquin Buckley. He's got good speed on the feet. He's got decent power. He just doesn't have very good head movement. You wouldn't know that based on his performance against Jordan Wright, though. He looked like he was Anderson Silva in that fight, and it was really off-putting because Jordan Wright... He does what I'm just going to call the Luke Rockhold defense, where I'm going to put my chin really high in the air and back up a lot. Now, I don't know if it's one of those cases where Jordan Wright is a big middleweight, and if you're a big guy, you're going to be used to getting your head out of danger by just leaning back. Fat Joe was able to do it in the early 2000s. I've made that joke multiple times before. But when you are a guy like Jordan Wright, who normally has height on your opponent, you can lean back and get away with that. But the issue is, when guys start to throw in combination, and when you just move backwards, eventually you're going to run out of place to go. And Jordan Wright was unfortunately a victim of that. Now, that was one of the more disgusting stoppages, I think, of 2020. That was one of those fights where Wright gets hurt right at the end of the first round. His corner, or whoever is looking out for his, future health, probably should have thrown in the towel. He somehow stumbles out there for like 10 seconds and gets absolutely flatlined by Joaquin Buckley. And that's the thing that worries me. I know that fight was 6 months ago, and that's something we talked about a little bit. Like, we're Bontarin fights later, and he's coming back after only 2 months layoff from his last knockout loss. When is too early to come back? And for Jordan Wright, that was a bad loss, where he did take a lot of damage. Would you like to see him maybe take 2 or 3 more months off? Or is this one of those cases where it kind of sucks you're an unranked fighter and you're just kind of a wheel in the column?
Well, let's talk about the odds to this one, because I think that's where it makes sense. You look at them, you had Pickett opening at a plus 100, Wright open a minus 120, and now they're both the same, around a minus 110. So it's a pick'em fight. Look at it for Jamie Pickett. This is a guy kind of in the same spot. You appear on Contender Series 3 times. He gets submitted by Charles Byrd, no longer in the UFC. He gets beaten by decision by Puna Soriano. And listen, Puna's been in the comment sections on YouTube, so I know he watches Fight Night Picks. And Puna, I'm talking to you. You're a good fighter. Right? You're a good fighter, and if we don't pick you to win, I'm sorry. But you lose to Puna Soriano. Kind of makes sense. Then he beats Jonathan Patti on Contender Series, and listen, Jonathan was, I'd say slim thick. He wasn't slim thick. He was short thick, fighting at 185. And if you want to see a great finishing sequence, and there's a lot of them out there, a lot of great combos. I mean, hell, Alex Morono looked pretty good last weekend against Cowboy Cerrone. That finishing sequence that Pickett has over Patti, wow, it was like a 30-punch combo. It was great. But if you do watch a lot of Jamie Pickett fights, a lot of great volume, a lot of forward pressure. If he's able to do kind of the Arlovsky rush on you, wow, Jamie Pickett looks like a really good fighter. Unfortunately for him, in his last fight, and I know a lot of people are low on him just based on the fight last week, but Tafon went off, and he put on one of those marquee Nchukwe fights where it's a lot of volume, it's a lot of pressure, you know how good his Muay Thai is, and Pickett wasn't really able to kind of withstand that. Chukwe looked great in that fight, Pickett didn't. So now Pickett has to pick up the pieces, and it's been, 5 months or so, but for Pickett, he didn't get finished. For Wright, he got finished brutally. And then you look at it, power puncher, volume striker, it is a really tough one to try and figure out. And the last thing I want to say, Matt, for Pickett too, again, Puna Soriano, Charles Bird, you're going to lose to guys like that. He also lost to Tyler Minton in his MMA debut. But other than that, Brian McGinnis, 4-2. Then Jason Fan, 0-3, 1-2, 1-2, 8-9, 4-2. It's a lot of the same thing for both of these guys where the records aren't really the best. For Pickett, again, a couple of gyms that you don't hear of often, Dynamics MMA, and for Pickett, he's coming out of a gym in North Carolina, Port City Performance, but it's a tricky one. It really
is. And for Pickett, that was a weird fight against Tafon because he gets hurt early, and it just felt like he could never really get back into the fight after that point, and I do feel like we are going to see a much improved Pickett in this fight. For Wright, I kind of mentioned it, he does like to move straight backwards, and when you do move straight back against a guy who can throw in combination with volume, eventually some of those shots are going to catch up to you. If Wright could back up and then move on an angle like we see a lot of other fighters, like Max Holloway is a good example of it. Now, I understand that is at the highest level, but still, when you see a guy who can back up and then cut an angle afterwards, I really hate the fact that Jordan Wright does back straight up, and I do think that's going to cost him against really anybody at either 205, 185 who has any kind of power in their hands. I really do.
So like I said, the odds are at about par. We're going to look at Tapology votes. They're surprised us as they are to you. 960 of them, 63% going with Wright, 48% roughly going with him to win by knockout. For the 37% that have Pickett, 69% by knockout. Might come as a surprise. The last time he knocked somebody out was actually Jonathan Patti late last year, actually back in August. So there's a method of victory for both guys. We kind of laid it out, but this is one again. It's volatile. The odds are par, so it's not going to be on the question mark kicks parlay. It's a tough read. Maybe you're taking the under 2.5. I think that'd be a decent one. I mean, both guys with finishing abilities, but who are you going with here?
I don't have a lot of confidence in this pick, if I'm being completely honest, but at the end of the day, I do have Jamie Pickett. I just think his volume and his ability to land punches in combinations will eventually catch up with Wright. If Wright goes out there, lays some straight shots like he is capable of doing, listen, like I said, he's a big guy at 185, and he does have good power on the feet, don't get me wrong, but the fact that he's only ever knocked out guys, or at least traditionally only knocks out guys who have like a 1-10 record, isn't that impressive. So I think this is one of those fights that if Jordan Wright can look good in this fight, then hey, I might change my opinion about him completely, but I've got to go with Pickett at the end of the day.
Fight doesn't go to decision right now on a couple different sites, minus 215. There's not odds out yet on over under 2.5 rounds, but there will be, and I'm assuming they'll be in that ballpark, like a minus 185. So for now, you're going to have to wait until question mark kicks. I'm going to go with the under 2.5 rounds, so you're going to have to wait to see how that plays out in the week. Under 2.5 rounds, it's a pick. I can do whatever the hell I want. And then on question mark kicks, I can pick a winner. That's what I'm going with, Matt. You're going with Pickett on this one.
I am.
Big fight coming up this weekend at middleweight. And in our main event, Matt, at lightweight for the title, Michael Chandler taking on Charles Oliveira. Can't wait for it. Keep locked in with Fight Night Picks. And as we always say, let's get into it.